What the Is he dying or is he getting abducted by an alien? Holy shit.
We are watching 5 disturbing recordings of people who ended up going missing.
Amber Tuccaro was a 20-year-old Canadian First Nations woman from Fort McMurray, Alberta. In August of 2012, she flew from Alberta to Edmonton.
If you can't hear it, let us know. We'll turn it up.
And booked a hotel room with her 1-year-old son and a female friend for a short vacation. That night, she got excited about the trip and decided to hitchhike into the city by herself, after which she was never seen again. When Amber didn't return to the hotel the next day, her friend called her mother, who immediately called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Soon after, Amber was declared a missing person. The authorities dug into her phone records and found that she had received a phone call while she was in the company of an unidentified man. The recording is pretty unsettling, especially since it marked the last time she was ever heard alive.
Where are we by?
We're just heading south of Beaumont, or north of Beaumont.
We're heading north of Beaumont. Yo, where are we going? No, this is a... Are you kidding me? You better not take me anywhere I don't want to go. I want to go into the city. Jeez. Yo, we're not going into the city.
Oh my gosh.
No, we're not. Then where are these roads going to?
50th Street.
50th Street. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Yo, where are we going?
50th Street.
50th Street?
50th Street.
East, right?
East.
Over down.
Travel.
Down.
What the?
In the recording, a male driver can be heard reassuring Amber that they're heading where she wants to go.
They don't know who that driver was?
But she doesn't seem to be buying the story and is obviously pretty distressed. On August 28th, the cops released the phone conversation, but they didn't officially start investigating the disappearance until well after a month after Amber was reported missing. Sadly, when Amber's mother pressured the cops to do something and help her find their daughter, they dismissed her and told her that Amber was probably just out partying and would turn up soon.
They found it through her phone records.
On September 1st, 2012, just 4 days after the audio from the eerie conversation was released, the remains of Amber's body were found on a rural property near Leduc County by a group of horseback riders. One of the most frustrating aspects of this case is how unprofessionally the disappearance was handled by the Canadian police. After just 1 month of searching, Amber was taken off missing persons list based on a series of suspicious, unconfirmed, and anonymous sightings in Edmonton, and it took her mother an entire month to get her back on the list.
What?
By the time she was put back on the list by the negligent cops who made the unforgivable mistake, her property, which could have been used as evidence, had already been accidentally destroyed after it was recovered from her hotel. Over the years, a few women have come forward claiming to know the identity of the man in the recording, with all of them accusing the same man. The authorities say they've looked into him, but he wasn't declared a person of interest. A few years ago, another man came forward and claimed that the man in the recording was his father, an American citizen with no legal standing in Canada who had been living on a ranch in the greater Edmonton area. If the man's testimony is to be believed, his father is also responsible for several other mysterious disappearances and deaths that have taken place in the area over the last few years. One of the most disturbing aspects in the recording is the audible dishonesty in the man's voice, which is pretty much clear as day when Amber asks if he's sure they're going into the city, and he responds with an extremely fake absolutely.
Couldn't they just match his voice to the recording?
I mean, it sounds like they investigated. They didn't investigate.
I feel like that would be pretty easy. Like, hey, if your voice sounds like this, it's obviously you.
Well, if multiple women have come forward and said it's him, and then his son came forward and said, yeah, it's him. It's so sad because she just tried to hitchhike into the city and clearly knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And like was telling him, you better not be taking me somewhere. And then she shows up dead in a field. And the cops just don't care and take her off the missing persons list. Oh gosh,
dude, that makes me sick, man.
It's also pretty messed up how the cops handled the case from start to finish, and many people suspect the cause of the unprofessional management of the case was just straight up racism against the Indigenous woman.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll someday have an explanation for what happened that night to Amber Tuccaro, but for now the case remains a pretty disturbing mystery. In late 2014, a YouTuber named Kenny Veach commented under the username SnakeBitMcGee on a video titled Area 51 Technician's Son Discloses Secret Alternative Energy. The comment read, "That ain't nothing. I am a long-distance hiker. One time during one of my hikes out by Nellis Air Force Base, I found a hidden cave. The entrance to the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M. I always enter every cave I find, but as I began to enter this particular cave, my whole body began to vibrate. The closer I got to the cave entrance, the worse the vibrating became. Suddenly, I became very scared and hightailed it out of there. That was one of the strangest things that ever happened to me. As you can imagine, Kenny's comment immediately caught a lot of people's attention. Some people called Kenny a liar, while others encouraged him to find the cave again and record his findings. And so he agreed to do just that. On October 18th of that year, Kenny uploaded a video of his long-distance hike in the Nevada desert in which he attempted to find the cave for a second time.
Oh, he's so cute.
Well, here I am on my hike up here in the mountains north of Las Vegas. This is a canyon I just walked up in. Now you can't tell.
Dude, what's gonna happen?
It's way out there by the mountains at the very, very end of this valley.
At the beginning of the video, Kenny stands at the top of an abandoned mine shaft and gives his viewers an introduction into the monstrous hike that lies ahead of him that day. As the day goes on, he continues to record what he sees as he travels through the Mojave Desert trying to locate the cave again. Because he failed to find the cave the second time through, a lot of his viewers criticized him pretty brutally, calling him a fraud and pressuring him into trying to find the cave for a third time. In a sea of comments provoking Kenny, a user named Lemmy Kilmister made a particularly disturbing and ominous comment that read, "No, do not go back there. If you find that cave entrance, don't go in. You won't get out." Still, on November 10th of that year, Kenny told his family he was going on an overnight hiking trip and he set off by himself for the third time to find the mysterious M Cave in the Mojave Desert, one of the hottest and driest regions in the world. That was the last time he was ever seen. On November 22nd, 2014, 12 days after he set off on his search for the M Cave, a group of search and rescue volunteers found Kenny's phone lying at the top of the same mine shaft he had pointed out in his M Cave video. Unfortunately, after his phone was located, the case went cold, and Kenny's body was never found.
What?
After the mysterious disappearance, people started coming up with all sorts of theories to explain what could have happened to Kenny, with most people claiming that he had either fallen down the abandoned mine shaft or died of overexposure. Some of the more outlandish theories reported that Kenny could have witnessed a crime out in the middle of the desert.
If they checked the mine shaft,
or
though,
that he
you know?
found a secret military base and was eliminated by
Because
the
his phone
government.
left there makes it seem like he didn't leave that location.
A few months after his disappearance, a comment on the original
Did he
video
did he actually just fall down?
Pilgrim shed light on an entirely new possibility, that Kenny had taken his own life. The comment read, "I am the girlfriend that Kenny spoke of in the video. I want you to know that I do not think Kenny had an accident. I believe he took his life. He battled with depression for many years and would not take medication or see a doctor. He quit his job a little more than a year before he disappeared." Even though the woman's comment seems pretty genuine and brings light to the very real possibility that Kenny took his own life, the case still doesn't have a solid conclusion.
That he took a video in the
Over
exact
the
spot
years,
his phone was
several other
found.
YouTubers have found caves in the same area Kenny was hiking in that almost perfectly resembled the letter M, and recently one of them even had a danger restricted area sign put up next to his entrance. So, even though it's possible that Kenny took his own life in the desert, his disappearance has still left more questions than answers. 32-year-old Henry McCabe, a Liberian immigrant and auditor for the Department of Revenue, had gone missing. According to the two friends who had been with Henry at the Celebi nightclub in Spring Lake that night, Henry had been drinking pretty heavily, and upon leaving the club at around 2 a.m., he allegedly asked William, one of the acquaintances he was with, to drop him off at a gas station nearby. After getting dropped off by William, who thought it was strange that Henry rejected his offer to drop him off at his house instead of a random gas station, Henry called his wife a little after 2:20 a.m. According to his wife, Henry sounded pretty delirious on the call, and near the end of the conversation, she called one of Henry's friends to ask him to go get her husband. Even though the friend didn't answer the call, the last 2 minutes of the conversation between Henry and his wife were recorded by the friend's voicemail, and the content of the conversation is pretty disturbing.
What the Is he dying or is he getting abducted by an alien?
Maybe he's tripping.
Yeah, he kind of sounds. He could be having a trip. Holy sh!
And he's missing? It's for sure an alien.
Have they never found his body?
I don't know.
It's almost
What
impossible to make out any of the
the
words
hell
in the
was
audio,
that,
and the
dude? That
combination
was
of
insane.
growling,
It sounded like he was
moans,
talking
and
to someone at
screams makes
first.
it hard to know what to even
Definitely
make of the
aliens, man.
recording. But needless to say, the voicemail is pretty unsettling.
Yeah, that was
it almost
very
sounds like the
unsettling.
screams are coming from someone who's being attacked.
Yeah,
but we
that's
obviously
what
can't
my
know for
trip
sure.
sounds like.
That same evening, another acquaintance called Henry and later told police that it sounded as though Henry had gotten into an altercation with someone in the middle of the call. After this extremely disturbing voicemail was recorded, Henry's phone records show that he called a Texas number that he had called over 20 times that day. But when the cops tried to trace the number, it came up as no longer in service.
Wait, he's gone?
Suspiciously, the cops never found footage of William's red car pulling up to the gas station where he had supposedly dropped Henry off, even though they
What?
checked the entire night's footage from all angles. William later ended up changing his story and alleged that as soon as he dropped Henry off, he immediately got back in the car and William dropped him off at another gas
Oh,
station
it's his
a couple
friend,
of miles
huh?
away.
But why?
On October 2nd, almost a month after Henry went missing, a strange anonymous letter was sent to the New Brighton Police Department a few miles from where Henry went missing. The letter read, "Henry McCabe, his body next to water, partially buried. Needs search dog to find. Witness who saw burial scared, female young, asked to come forward. Can remain anonymous and will protect." On November 2nd, the cops found Henry's body in Rush Lake, a few miles from where Henry had supposedly been dropped off.
Oh,
on
it
the
was
night of
totally
his
the friends, huh?
disappearance. Mysteriously, they didn't find any signs of foul play on his body, even though the anonymous letter suggests he was buried by someone else. Despite the lack of evidence on his body, it's possible that he was either forcibly drowned by a group of assailants, that he took his own life, or that something entirely different took place that
No,
night.
the
You
friends.
just don't know.
The only thing we know for sure is that this is an extremely strange
Oh,
case that
jeez,
we'll probably
man.
never get a conclusive explanation for.
It's so sad.
Oh, that's so sad.
A 26-year-old oil worker
Speak for
from
yourself.
Texas named Brandon Lawson arrived home from work and immediately got into an argument with his long-term girlfriend. Things had been pretty tense between the couple in the days leading up to that evening, as Brandon had frequently been working Monday through Sunday, and the youngest of the couple's 2 children was only a few months old. Also, Brandon had recently relapsed into addiction, which further strained their relationship. It's unclear if his girlfriend kicked him out of the house or if he decided to leave after about an hour of arguing, but whatever the case, Brandon got in his silver Ford F-150 and drove away from his home in San Angelo at midnight on August 8th, after which he was never seen again. About half an hour after leaving his house, Brandon made a phone call to his brother Kyle, letting him know that he was a few miles south of Braun on a stretch of highway in the middle of nowhere and that he was out of gas. After fetching a gas can from Brandon's house, which was about a mile away from his own, Kyle got into his car and prepared to drive to his brother's location. But things didn't exactly go according to plan for Brandon, and a few minutes later at around 12:50 a.m., he made this disturbing call to 911.
What?
911 emergency.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. It's like we're just pushing guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. Got taken to the woods.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, now run that by me.
We're not talking to him. I actually ran into him.
Do you need an ambulance?
Yeah, no, I need the cops.
Okay. Hello?
Holy.
Hello? Hello?
Jeez, man.
Although it's hard to make out what's going on in the background, many people have alleged that they can hear the sound of gunshots and other people talking in the audio, but it's hard to confirm what exactly was being said and what was even going on during the call. 8 minutes after Brandon's 911 call, another driver called the cops to inform that a silver F-150 had been parked pretty dangerously on the highway with the back of the truck sticking out into the other lane. Following his call to 911, Brandon continued to contact his brother Kyle by phone, and they exchanged a series of strange phone calls. When Kyle asked him if he had been using drugs again, Brandon immediately denied it. At around 1:10 a.m., Kyle arrived at the location where the truck
Sounds like
was
he's on
parked,
drugs, huh?
but Brandon was nowhere to be seen. A few minutes after his
sounded
brother's
pretty lucid
arrival,
in
Brandon
that.
once again called Kyle and made a series of disturbing statements, claiming that he could see Kyle and the officer that had just arrived at the scene, that he was bleeding, and that they needed to hurry. Disturbingly, he was nowhere in sight. For the
Yeah,
next
he
few
had to have been
minutes,
on
Kyle
drugs.
continued
Yeah, but how would he have
Brandon, but
known
all
they
his
arrived?
calls went straight to voicemail. After failing to find him that night, the cops launched an official search for Brandon, complete with helicopters, thermal cameras, dogs, and a massive search party. Unfortunately, Brandon was nowhere to be found. It was later revealed that Brandon had cashed out his 401k on the night of his disappearance, suggesting he might have vanished on his own accord. However, due to his distressed phone calls to 911 and his brother, it's also possible that Brandon fell victim to some sort of cartel activity, or that someone he ran into on the road attacked him. Hopefully, with time, more conclusive answers will surface to give Brandon's family a sense of much-needed closure.